Is there a plot to take guns away from law-abiding citizens? To have the masses cry for more gun control? Follow me down the rabbit hole to find out. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the rabbit hole. I am your host, Danny, and today we are talking about gun control, or I don't know if it's necessarily gun control, like taking our guns, the plot to take our guns, because, there is one. I want to apologize. I'm a little stuffy, but I'm trying to get over this cold, so I don't sound like this forever. I apologize for that. Also, I want to thank Ben for the suggestion. So he messaged me on Instagram to talk about this conspiracy, or to make me aware of it. And so I did an episode on it. So thank you, Ben. And I hope that this is everything that you wanted to know about this conspiracy. And also, before we get into this conspiracy, I just want to give my condolences to all the friends and families of people who have been lost to public shootings or public massacres. It could be like bombings or whatever, like the Boston Marathon bombing, stuff like that. I live in Colorado, and we have our fair share of shootings around here. Columbine, which everyone has heard of, Platte Canyon High School, the Aurora Movie Theater shooting, Arapahoe High School, which my sisters were attending at the time, STEM school in Highlands Ranch, the Boulder grocery store shooting, and most recently out here was the nightclub shooting down in Colorado Springs. So those are just to name a few. There's been so many more, of course, everywhere. This happens all over the country. But I just wanted you all to know that by reporting on this conspiracy, I am in no way taking away blame or hurt that is felt. I'm just reporting on this conspiracy, and I'm also not gonna say that the shootings weren't real and that no one actually died, because people do actually die in these shootings. This is an actual thing that is happening. I know that the owner of InfoWars actually got charged because he was spreading a conspiracy that Sandy Hook didn't actually happen, and then they were proving that it did happen, and he's going to get charged and go to potentially jail time for that. I don't know if that has already happened or not, but I remember hearing about that. So I'm not saying that this didn't happen. I'm saying that it did happen. My sisters were in a school shooting. I know what it's like to be like, are my family members alive or dead? It was the year after I graduated, so I wasn't there. I knew the shooter. I know my sisters were there. I was in the Navy already, so I was in training somewhere, trying to think, are they alive? Am I going to hear from them again? So, I know how scary it can be. I'm not taking that away. I am just covering the conspiracy that these attacks were planned to convince the public to push for gun control. That is a conspiracy. So I don't want to take away the hurt. I know that this sucks, and I cry every time I hear about a school shooting. So don't get me wrong. This is a tragedy. I just want to put in that disclaimer that that's not what I'm doing here. We are just going to talk about the conspiracy. So without further ado, let's get into it. So outside of the shootings that I did mention about the Colorado shootings, there are some other notable shootings. We got Virginia Tech, Sandy Hook, Fort Hood, the Orlando nightclub shooting, the Las Vegas Country Music Festival shooting, the Uvalde, I'm saying that wrong, shooting, that one in Texas with the elementary school. And you had, I put on here the most recent shooting was the Covenant school shooting in Tennessee, excuse me. But even more recently than that, on April 10th, I think it was. Yeah, April 10th, there was a shooting that left 5 dead at a Louisiana bank. So, and those are just some of the big ones. There is a full list of mass shootings or just shootings in general. If you want to look at it, it's really sad, but there's a whole list. It's a Wikipedia page. I linked it in my show notes, so you can go look at that. But this isn't that's not I'm not here to just talk about the shootings. I'm here to talk about why the shootings are happening. So, in 1991, a book was published called Behold a Pale Horse, and it was by Milton William Cooper. He mostly went by William Cooper. Milton was his first name. I don't think he liked it very much. I don't know. I'm speculating. I have no idea if this guy liked his name. So this book was known for its conspiracy theories, and honestly, like, would have probably been a one-off had William Cooper not died the way he died, which we're gonna get into. So, anyway. Cooper was a former naval intelligence officer who is said to be giving away government secrets. That's always good. I love it when people give away government secrets because I get to report on them, and it's really fun. So in this book, Cooper talked about, JFK being assassinated because he was going to reveal that aliens were going to take over the world, that AIDS is a government conspiracy, which I did cover. So if you want to hear about that, it's like way back, one of the very first episodes. I don't know. It was probably like episode 5 or 6 or something like that. He predicted 9/11. And he also predicted school shootings in order to disarm the public. That, he said, quote, the government encouraged the manufacture and importation of military firearms for the criminals to use. This is intended to foster a feeling of insecurity, which would lead the American people to voluntarily disarm themselves by passing laws against firearms. Using drugs and hypnosis on mental patients in the process called Orion, the CIA inculcated the desire in these people to open fire on schoolyards and thus inflame the anti-gun lobby. This plan is well underway and so far is working perfectly. The middle class is begging the government to do away with the Second Amendment. And just so you know, that's the end of the quote, excuse me. And just so you know exactly what the Second Amendment states, quote, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, end quote. So the Second Amendment, as I just read it to you from the constitutioncenter.org, says nothing about what type of guns the people can or cannot have. It says nothing about needing these guns for hunting or just having them around the house. As for me and my family, we just prefer to protect ourselves. So all these people that are saying, like, assault rifles aren't in, that's not what they were talking about when they made the Second Amendment. That's not true. Or people are saying, oh, it's for hunting. No, that's not true either. If you actually read the Second Amendment or look at the Constitution, then you can see that it says nothing about hunting. It says nothing about what type of guns. It just says that a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. That is probably the key thing there. Being necessary to the security of a free state. So if we want America to continue to be a free country, to have all of the rights and things that we have now, all of our privileges, our rights, things that we don't want to be taken away, the people should keep and bear arms. Because if we have guns as the civilians, the citizens of the country, then we will make sure that our government doesn't overstep. Anyways, I know that there's a lot of arguments out there about what the Second Amendment means and the interpretation that people are putting on it. But if you read it and if you go through it step by step, then you can understand it a little bit better. But I think that starts with actually understanding that there is a Constitution of the United States and there's a lot of things that are written into the Constitution. Maybe we should study the Constitution a little bit more. Anyway, that's not what this is about. This is about guns. So, back to what Cooper was saying in his book. I tried to investigate the Orion project he mentioned, but funny enough, everywhere I looked, it kept taking me back to MK Ultra. Guys, if you have not heard my episode, it's one of my favorite theories. If you have not heard my episode about MK Ultra, please, please, please go back and listen to it. I believe that they never stopped experimenting, that they pretended like they stopped experimenting, or they stopped maybe for a while, then they got better at hiding it. But I don't think they ever actually stopped experimenting when it came to MK Ultra. And if you don't know what MK Ultra is, it was an experiment the CIA was conducting to try to achieve mind control. They were using LSD during these experiments. And the reason the CIA was doing this was because they thought that the Russians had already achieved mind control and they wanted mind control as well. It was mostly like back in the 50s and 60s, and it was during like the Cold War. So it's a really cool episode. I love that theory, so please go listen to it if you haven't, because it's going to make a lot more sense for the rest of this episode. And I don't typically like suggest you to go listen to my old episodes, but this episode just happened to bring up 2 of them. So here we are. And honestly, MK Ultra makes so much sense if you look back at what Cooper said, saying, quote, using drugs and hypnosis on mental patients. Well, yeah, that screams MK Ultra. This is one of the things that they did when they were dosing people in mental hospitals and prisons, because these people either couldn't consent or didn't care about their lives so much that they just like consented to the testing or whatever. They didn't care, right? And actually, it's come out a lot recently that prisons in Pennsylvania back in the 50s, and I think that was actually a Patreon episode. It was a current events episode that I did. And since I'm mentioning Patreon, I did I paused my Patreon for a little while. I only had 1 member on Patreon, and it was actually getting to be too much to like put out all these episodes when nobody was listening to them, and they were really cool. So if you guys are interested in Patreon, I'll put a little survey on Instagram, and you guys can click if you want me to restart that or not. Anyway, back to this. According to an article that I found from 2019, about 1/3 of acts of mass violence was committed by people with a serious mental illness. In the same article, they say that mass shootings, which are defined as 4 or more people killed, account for less than 0.2% of U.S. homicides between the year 2000 and 2016. So, and these estimates came from a study conducted by the National Council for Behavioral Health. So the media has us believing that people are dying left and right from mass shootings. Like, people are just shooting up places and people are dying left and right. Don't get me wrong. Yes, it sucks to send your kid to school and potentially there's a shooter that comes to school. And there's been plenty of times where it's another kid who has been bullied or something has happened in that case and they are traumatized. They want to make people pay, whatever. But if you look at Sandy Hook, you look at I know I'm saying this place wrong, Uvalde, the Texas shooting, the elementary school in Texas. You look at the Aurora theater shooting. You have these crazy people that like they just like went crazy and randomly shot up a school. You don't have 9-year-olds walking into an elementary school shooting it up. You have grown-ass men walking into an elementary school and shooting it up. You have grown-ass people. You have this trans from Nashville that walked into a school and just decided to shoot innocent children that did not need to die.
Did you know that over 40% of Americans have a hard time swallowing pills? So when it's time to take your vitamins, large capsules and pills are out of the question. We know that gummy vitamins exist, but they're full of sugar, they get stuck in your teeth, and they only contain a fraction of the nutrients you need. Luckily, Easy Melts has discovered the ultimate vitamin sweet spot. Vitamins that melt in your mouth, taste like a treat, and are packed with nutrients ready for absorption, all without an ounce of sugar. For a limited time, Easy Melts is giving listeners a free 3-month supply of vitamin D3 with their first purchase. To claim your free D3 vitamins, visit try.easymelts.com/spring24. That's melts.com/spring24. Say goodbye to the old way of taking your vitamins and say hello to the easy way. Menopausal and perimenopausal women, listen up. It's time to take control of your health and comfort, and Winona is here to help. Winona is a telemedicine company for menopause care who believes that your symptoms are real, important, and deserve to be taken seriously. And for many women, this starts with hormone replacement therapy. Winona's HRT is made with plant-based bioidentical hormones rather than synthetic ones, so it better aligns with your body to offer relief from hot flashes, weight gain, and other uncomfortable symptoms. 80% of women who use Winona find relief within just 90 days. So, what are you waiting for? Get started today. Visit buywinona.com today to start your free visit. With free shipping and the ability to pause or cancel at any time, your path to wellness has zero obligations. Use code SPRING24 at buywinona.com for 25% off your first treatment plan. That's BYWINONA.com for 25% off. Winona, menopause care made easy.
I think that there is an epidemic in our society, and it is mental health. But could the government, the CIA in particular, be using these mental health patients in order to convince them to go shoot up a school? And I'm not saying that they're probably not going to a mental health facility, giving this guy a bunch of drugs, convincing him that the school did something wrong and going to shoot. But these people spend a lot of time on the internet. And if you are in the right place, you fall down the right rabbit hole, you do the right thing, you're going to find some fucked up shit on the internet. And this is just my own opinion. I don't know exactly how they may or may not be convincing these people to go and do these mass shootings. But the fact of the matter is, William Cooper, died under very mysterious circumstances. Apparently he was getting arrested for some warrant or something, and he died in a shootout with the police. Which, I don't know, maybe he fought back. I don't know the whole story. I just know that he died under very mysterious circumstances. And because he died under those mysterious circumstances, the conspiracy theory community went crazy and was like, they killed him. Which, obviously isn't that far off, because you got the Clintons out here just murdering people left and right. And we are going to get into Epstein and, that whole thing, because what the fuck is happening there? But that's not here. That's not this. He died under crazy circumstances and randomly during a shootout. A lot of people think that he was quieted. He knew too much. He kept talking too much, and they killed him. Which, I mean, I believe it. But let's look at Nazi Germany here for a little while. Germany, forever and ever, they didn't really believe in having weapons or everyone having access to weapons. They kind of limited weapons for a long time, just as a country in general. And then after World War I, the Allies were like, you guys shouldn't have weapons. And so in the 1920s, they kind of followed what the Allies said, and they disarmed most of their populace. Whoever did have guns, they were like, yeah, you guys don't really need them. And then in 1928, they decided that they would pass a law. If you think you need a gun and you can prove that you're competent enough to have a gun, then you can have a gun. And most people in Nazi Germany, or in Germany at the time, they were like, yeah, well, I don't really need a gun. It's fine. Then once the Nazis kind of came to power in the 1930s, they were kind of rising to power. And they decided that they didn't want their political opponents to have guns. Does this sound familiar to what's happening right now? Is that they decided that Jews were incompetent to have guns, so they were going to take, there's no way any Jew ever could have guns. They just can't have them. They can't be competent enough to have them. We need to take them from them. Fine. So they did. But this also gave them a very convenient reason to search the homes of the Jewish people. But at the end of the day, you have the Allies that are like, you guys don't need guns. Why is that? Well, if they don't have guns, they can't attack again. You have the Nazis that come to power and they're like, our political opponents cannot have guns. Why is that? If you take guns away from people that are opposing you, they can't fight you. Right? I know one of the biggest things, yes, we want to keep our kids safe. We want to keep our people safe. We don't want people to get shot in a mass shooting. We don't want mass shootings. Nobody wants that. That's not something that we want. All I'm saying is, you have shootings that have happened in Texas where somebody walked in to a church, and I can't remember exactly which church, and I'm probably going to butcher this story a little bit, so please fact check me on this, because again, it's coming from my brain, not a source that I found. But this guy walks into a church and he gunned down a couple people. Like, he walked in, he was gonna shoot up the whole church, kill everybody. One of the guys that was attending church had a gun on him, and he killed the shooter. This man was in church with a gun on his hip. He did not shoot anybody maliciously. He shot to defend the people of the church and himself and his family, and he killed the gunman. At the end of the day, law-abiding citizens, people that have guns to protect themselves, to protect others, they're not out there killing, committing mass murders, none of that. Absolutely, there should be background checks when it comes to guns, and there are. I've bought a gun before. There's background checks. You have to go through and make sure that everything's okay. Could there be more intense background checks about mental health and your mental health? Absolutely. But the problem with that is that mental health is such a spectrum. Is that just because you had a mental issue at some point doesn't mean you still have it. But also, just because you don't have it right now doesn't mean it won't come back in the future. So, say you had a mental health issue, and then you got cleared by your doctor to go, you're allowed to buy a gun or whatever. I don't know how it would work, right? But you got cleared. Later on, your mental health can get worse again. It's not like it. That's the problem, is that everyone's like, well, if there's any mental health issues, just they can't buy guns ever. Well, that's not fair to that person either, because what if they live in a dangerous neighborhood? They need to protect themselves. As a minority, as a female, as different groups of people, they're more likely to need protection because they're more likely to be targeted. I'm not a minority. I am a female, but I'm not a minority, and so I'm just using these as examples, not to say that that's what's happening in my case. But who am I to tell you whether you should or should not have a gun? If they take guns away from law-abiding citizens, that does not take guns away from criminals. That does not take, if the CIA is behind this, if they are actively trying to get people to shoot up places, that's not gonna stop, because they are getting the guns from the government. These people that are committing the mass shootings, and I'm not saying directly the government comes to you and here's a AR-15, go shoot up this school. And just so we know, AR and AR-15 does not stand for assault rifle. If that's what you thought, I mean, you're wrong. Do some more research behind guns. But at the end of the day, you are telling the people that are for gun control are basically saying, we want people with guns to come and take guns away from people who have guns. So that way, the only people to protect us are the people that have guns. This is stupid. This thought process is dumb, right? Law-abiding citizens aren't out shooting up places. You have got to understand that taking guns away from law-abiding citizens is actually hurting the country. Because now the government, whoever's got whatever planned, because you know that they have something planned, that they can now execute it because law-abiding citizens don't have guns, because all these middle-class families that are against guns, or maybe don't care one way or another, they are going to fight for gun control, right? Because there's mass shootings and we don't want mass shootings, so let's fight for gun control. Well, at the end of the day, you're not fighting the right fight. You're fighting the wrong fight. I understand the fight. I get it. And if you want gun control, maybe what is your suggestion? Because right now, from where I'm standing, I'm seeing children, that means anybody under 18. They are at capitals protesting for gun control. Okay, children, what is your solution then to gun control? What is your solution? Because if somebody with a gun on that campus in Tennessee, first of all, let's talk about there were two police officers that walked in. They went in and they gunned down the person with a gun. So they did their jobs. So if they didn't have guns, how would they have stopped the gun person? I don't want to misgender them. How dare I? I'm not against trans people. I am against trans people that use it as an excuse. I'm against, actually, that's probably just in general. I'm against people that use who they are, what they are as an excuse. If you're black, don't use that as an excuse. You're just black. That's just what you are. If you're a female, don't use that as an excuse. You're just a female. That's just what you are. If you're trans, that's not an excuse. That's just who you are. Do you, man. But like, don't use it as an excuse. Don't walk into an elementary school and a Christian elementary school and shoot it up because Christian people didn't accept you. Stop looking to Christian people to accept you. They're not going to. Go to a trans community where they accept LGBTQ plus whatever people. Go there because they're going to accept you. Stop looking for validation where you're not going to find it and then shoot them up because you don't agree with them. I'm sorry, guys. I'm getting very heated about this. That's not what this was supposed to be. I hope it's a conspiracy because it makes it better. It makes it more tolerable in my head. It hurts my heart that kids had to die. It hurts my heart that this happens to kids. Okay. Until next week, my friends. Stay skeptical. Hey friends, The Rabbit Hole is an independent podcast with everything you hear done by me, Danny Mercy. I appreciate all of your support. Please rate and review wherever you're listening. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's at rabbit.holepodcast. And thank you, Zakar Balaha, for our awesome intro.